Hello, welcome to Smash Hits Sports. I'm Cody, that's Nick, and today we are doing the Big Ten preview, arguably one of the best conferences in all of college football. We're doing predictions for every single team, conference championship predictions, and then a Big Ten draft, drafting the best of what the Big Ten has to offer.
It's the best roster I've ever seen. It's the best roster.
There are guys in college sports who are just winners, and Curt Cignetti is a damn winner.
You can feel there's an aura around Rutgers sports right now.
That was a lost season before a snap was ever played.
Nebraska could win the national title.
Oh, fuck! What am I doing? No!
It could be argued so easily that it is the best defense this century.
Nick, the Big Ten this year is going to be absolutely electric. They added in some absolute powerhouses in Oregon and USC, as well as UCLA and Washington. This conference is as good as any conference in college football. I think they have some of the best. They have some of the worst. But let's start with Illinois. Illinois is a team that I just don't know how to feel about them. Nothing about them excites me. Their offense is very, very boring. They were one of the best teams to the under all year last year. They consistently went under the total. Good defense, bad offense, but not as good of a defense as Iowa, but not as bad as an offense as Iowa. They went 5-7 last year. Their win total is 5.5. How do you feel about this Illini team?
Yeah, I feel like it's one crazy, again, that we're starting with Illinois, even though we added 4 new teams to the Big Ten.
Illinois is still first in alphabetical order. Wild.
That can't, how is that possible? I have them at 4-8. You said 5.5 is their win total?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm kind of fascinated at what the win totals are going to be, because it's so new, this conference, that I feel like a lot of people are going to overhype maybe some of the new teams coming in, because it never really works that way. And if you overhype the new teams coming in, there are going to be teams like Illinois and Purdue and so on and so forth that are just going to be kind of a catastrophe of that. And so I don't think Illinois is going to be beating Oregon if they were to play or anything, but
well, they do.
So okay, they do.
Yeah.
So yeah, then obviously not. But
yeah, that's the only team of the new 4 that Illinois plays is Oregon. They missed UCLA, USC, and Washington. I'm going to be honest. Luke Altmaier had 13 touchdowns and 10 interceptions last year. If those numbers are anywhere close to what he puts up this year, Illinois will be lucky to win 4 games. So yeah. I don't have a lot of faith in this squad. I don't think they got a whole lot better. They have a very difficult schedule. They have road games at Rutgers and at Northwestern, the last 2 games of the season, that I think are pretty tough to end it. So I also have them going 4-8. They're plus 20,000 to win the Big Ten. I think it's going to be a long season for the Fighting Illini. So we're going to keep it moving to a team that I'm going to get on my soapbox for. There are a handful of teams that I've declared as my teams for this year. Virginia Tech was one of those. Kansas State is one of those. My team for the Big Ten this year is Windiana. Curt Cignetti and this Indiana team, I think, is going to be so under the radar. They have the 61st of 70 most difficult schedules in power conference football. They return a pretty decent amount of production, but what they've done is they've gone out and gotten key difference makers at key positions. They've gotten some new players on the offensive line that I think are going to help them improve. They brought in Curtis Rourke, the quarterback from Ohio, who, when healthy, was very, very good last season. And then they went in and brought in Elijah Surratt from JMU, who was outstanding for them last year. I think he is going to be a difference maker day one. I think Curt Cignetti, there are guys in college sports who are just winners, and Curt Cignetti is a damn winner. They play 3 out of conference games this year that I think are absolute gimmies in FIU, Western Illinois, and Charlotte. Those should be cakewalks. And then they end the season at home against Purdue. In my mind, that's 4 very easy wins. If you can flip some of these 50-50 wins.
Yeah, so Maryland, who do you have them beating outside of those 4 teams?
I have them beating UCLA. I have them beating Northwestern. I have them beating Maryland. That gets you to 7-5.
And you have them at 7-5?
Or sorry, and Washington. That gets you to 7-5.
Wait, no. That would get you to 8, right?
Three out of conference teams, 4 conference games.
But Purdue, UCLA, Maryland, and Washington.
UCLA. Oh yeah, never mind. Purdue, Maryland, UCLA, and Northwestern. Yep, that's 7-5. I have them going 7-5. I think Indiana makes a bowl game in their first year under Curt Cignetti. There's the tough part for Purdue is the end of their schedule. It is tough. There's a stretch there where it gets a little tough. Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State in 3 consecutive weeks. But
yeah,
I think this team can win 7 games. They're good.
I like Curt Cignetti, obviously. JMU magic is real, but the problem is I do think there is like a power behind JMU and its athletic brand right now that Indiana does not remotely have at all. So you're bringing guys that were – some of these guys are like FCS guys still that transferred into Indiana that, you know, obviously were boosted up with JMU when they got boosted up. But it's tough for me to imagine a bowl game right now given the state of the Big Ten because I just don't see like this massive switch in talent on the roster. I like their quarterback more this year, but they were bad when they had Michael Penix, you know? Like, they were better, but they were still bad. So, yeah, maybe they could have a game where they beat Penn State like they did with Penix, or maybe they have, like, one game here this season that is kind of like, ooh, Indiana's back. But I don't think it's going to be this season-long, like, wow, Indiana football is here. I think it'd be like a one game, everything comes together. So I have them at 5-7. And the same 4 wins that you had plus UCLA for me.
Yep. Their win total is 5.5. So right around that mark. Seems like we're pretty much on the same page, but I'm high on the Hoosiers. I like them. Iowa. Iowa was 130th in points per game last year among 133 FBS teams. It was nothing short of pathetic. The entire season was essentially tracking whether or not Brian Ferentz was going to make his 25 points per game he needed to keep his job.
He didn't score 25 points once.
No, they did not average 25 points a game.
Did they even get there once?
They got 25 a couple of times.
Okay.
But they put up an absolute goose egg against Penn State late in the season. It dropped his average below 20 points per game, and that dream came to an end. So Iowa does have a new offensive coordinator. However, as long as Kirk Ferentz is the coach, I think this team will still be stuck in the 1990s. Their win total is 7.5. That's the lowest I can remember in a long time for Iowa. How do you think this team's going to do? Because they play a fairly easy schedule. Their only new team. They get Washington and UCLA, so they miss out on Oregon and USC being added in. I don't know how I feel about Iowa.
I think that Iowa's defense is somehow getting overlooked because, in my opinion, it could be argued so easily that it is the best defense this century, like talent-wise. It is. Everyone came back, and what they were doing last year was unbelievable. They have Jay Higgins, who led the nation in tackles last year, I believe, and he decided to come back. He did not need to do that. He's probably a top 10 player in college football. Sebastian Castro in the secondary. I know you lost Cooper DeJean, but there's a couple other guys in that secondary that came back as well. I think Nwankpa is one of them, Xavier Nwankpa. But like there are some dogs on that defense, and if they keep playing that style, then the defense is just gonna continue to look like it looked the past however many years. And so all Iowa needs is a little spark on offense. And maybe it's foolish to assume that'll happen, but the fact that they have a new offensive coordinator, and I think Cade McNamara has the capability to do something that's, you know, special every now and then, it'd be foolish for me to just sit back and say, oh, they're going to be the same Iowa. I think they're going to have a better defense somehow, and then be able to put up a little bit more offensively, and that's just going to make a difference. So I have them going 9-3, but I think 10-2 is in the park. I think a playoff spot's in the park for Iowa.
I have them going 8-4. I think they're closer to 7-5 than they are 9-3.
Mm-hmm.
If I was a betting man, I cannot get behind this offense at all. They did nothing. They added no one in the portal. They brought no one in. They did nothing offensively outside of fire the coach's son and replace him with Tim Lester, who okay, but if Iowa's offense looks anywhere remotely the same way they did last year, and they go from having a schedule where they play 2 ranked opponents the entire year to now they have to play at Ohio State, Iowa State, who should be pretty damn good. I just don't see a world
they always
in
play Iowa
which
State.
Yeah, but I think this year's Iowa State team is better than last year's Iowa State team. I just don't believe in I have no, and the thing is if Iowa does go 10-2 and say they do sneak their way into a college football playoff, they will get fucking blasted the first team that they play. The first competent team that they play, they will get fucking boat raced, because that's what happens every time Iowa plays a competent team. They got shit pumped by Nico Iamalava, a freshman, in their bowl game. They got shit pumped by Penn State, who did not let them cross the 50-yard line more than one time the entire game. Mm-hmm. And then they got shit pumped by Michigan. This is a team that every time they play decent competition, they crumble. Yeah. I think, and this, maybe Iowa's defense is really good because the teams that they played in the Big Ten West suck ass.
Yeah, but I think
they don't have that privilege anymore.
I think they have a really good chance at riding this defense to high levels of success this year, because in my opinion, it will be better. And again, it's a matter of, can the offense pass the 50-yard line against a team like Penn State? Because if they can't do that, then yeah, it's stupid and I'll be wrong. But I just think there's no way you can just accept that reality again if you're Iowa. You can't.
You could be right. You could be right about Iowa and their defense, and that could still be true. You
exactly.
know what I mean?
So
because their schedule is easy enough that they still could go 9-3, 10-2, and make a playoff game. And then imagine if they get matched up against Jackson Dart and that Ole Miss team, they'll run circles around them. Circles.
Well, yeah. The problem is if you go 3 and out in a minute every time you have the ball on offense, it's almost just a guarantee that your defense is going to just lose. Its ability
it's not,
to play.
Not the defense's fault. It's just
they've been on the field 56 minutes out of the 60 minutes in the game.
The biggest loss that Iowa has this year is the fact that they lost their All-American NFL draft pick punter. That's their biggest loss that this team has. The fact that their special teams could flip a field every single time, and they now don't have that luxury. That's legitimately their biggest offensive loss.
Good, because now they're go for it on 4th down, or fucking try. Maybe having a great punter
try
is the reason that they were we'll just run on 3rd and 6 and we'll just punt so we can flip the field. Now you can't do that. Now you're going to pass on 3rd and 6, and maybe it'll work. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. I don't know. I'm not saying I think Iowa's this great team, but I do think 9-3 makes a lot of sense to me, and I think there's some value in sprinkling them to maybe make the playoff. I really do, because people don't like them this year.
I don't hate that, and I will say, I do like their win total over 7.5. So I will agree with you there. Maryland. Nick, this was your team last year. This was your team. And
yes,
while I will say they didn't live up to your expectations, they still had what I think was a very quietly good season. They were 8-5 last year. They very quietly had a good year. I think it was 7-5 with a bowl win, if I'm not mistaken. But a very, very quietly, Maryland had a great year. They return not much production, to be very honest. Losing Talia Tagovailoa is, I think, a pretty significant blow to that offense.
But they play no one to replace him. That's the problem. Is there's literally nobody. there.
And they have a very easy out-of-conference schedule: UConn, Virginia, Villanova. I mean, it does not get easier than that out of conference. But what are your thoughts on this Maryland team? Are you still fairly high on them?
No, because last year was their chance. And again, I don't want people to think like, oh, I am now projecting them to go below 500 because I'm angry at them. No, it's the reason I had them going, having a 10-win season last year is because the stars were aligned for them and it didn't work out. So like you're saying, 8-5 is good, but the stars were aligned to get to 10 wins. They didn't do that. And now everyone's gone and now they don't have a quarter. They have a good running back. And I'm sure I don't remember the pieces that I'm thinking of on defense, but they have a couple guys enough to get them a few wins. Like I think they could beat like a frisky Northwestern team. I think they can beat some teams that I think are better than them. But for the most part, they're just going to lose to. They're going to be like double-digit underdogs against a lot of the games they play. So 5-7 for me, with confidence. What's their win total?
Their win total 6.5.
Okay, wow. So yeah, 5-7. I take that under strong.
Yeah, I have them going 4-8.
Wow.
I don't know who their quarterback is going to be, and that scares me. In a Big Ten the Big Ten doesn't have a ton of great quarterbacks. They have a handful, but they have a lot of good quarterbacks, and I don't think Maryland has even that, and that does concern me a little bit. They're plus 10,000 to win the Big Ten. I mean, it's a pretty big long shot. Your reigning national champion, Michigan Wolverines, return the least amount of production of any program in college football at 36%. They have they had one of the easiest schedules in college football last year. That is not anywhere close to the case this year. They have Texas in week 2. They play at Washington October 5th. They play Oregon November 2nd. And then they play USC September 21st. And then they have the game November 30th. They lose head coach Jim Harbaugh. They lose their quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. They lose their All-American running back in Blake Corum. And yet their win total is 9.5. This defense is going to be legitimately one of the best defenses we've seen in a long time in college football. Again.
Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. This Michigan team is still so good.
You could argue the two best defensive players in college football are both on Michigan. You could absolutely make that argument.
And I would not argue against you.
I actually think that would be my legit answer. You could throw Harold Perkins in there, but Mason Graham and Will Johnson, I think, are probably number 1 and 2 for me, which is crazy to say that they're on the same team.
James Pierce is also up there, but
I think Pierce is getting a lot of draft love, which is a little different because he's in a valuable position.
That's fair.
So a lot of people are like, he's going to go number 1. It's well, yeah, he's a freak edge rusher, but I think as far as value goes, Mason Graham, and he doesn't even look like he'd be that good. It's crazy when you look at him. It's wait a second.
He just plays incredible football every play. Every play is the same thing with him. He's just so good at every play.
But yeah, so Michigan, this is what I think is going to happen to Michigan this year. I think they're going to get crushed by Texas. That's an early game.
Wow.
I think the offense is just not going to be remotely close to connecting in that game. Texas is just going to be flowing. They have a lot of the same sort of pieces there. Quinn Ewers coming back. So I think that could be an ugly 42-17 type game where people that were ooh, Michigan, defending champs, I'm going to bet on Michigan. Everyone's kind of going to be oh, Michigan sucks. They suck. It's over, blah, blah, blah. The Connor Stallion stock will have come out. Everyone's just done with Michigan. After that, I think then you fade the public. Then Michigan, all of a sudden, wait a second, they're not bad at all. They're actually a good team. And they're sort of pushing through this agenda that they suck by coming away with a lot of wins. I don't think they beat Ohio State this year, but I think they beat everyone else.
Wow.
Because again, it's really a matter of maybe that Texas game is a wake up call. It's a very specific prediction here for me, but it's one of those, you close your eyes, you envision it. It's like, wow, I have goosebumps because like it just makes perfect sense. So I'm riding with it.
Yep.
10-2 for me.
Yep. I have them going 9-3. I also have them losing to Oregon. It is the other loss I have on their schedule for them, but I do have them losing Ohio State at Ohio State, and then Texas at home. I think there are some teams where, like, do you think Lincoln Riley's USC defense is going to be tough enough to stop this run? I don't think so. I still think, like, while 9-3 may seem like a disappointment after a national title, with how much that this team has lost, including their head coach, and all of the outside noise and pressure that's going to be on this program, I think 9-3 is still a phenomenal season.
Especially if those are your 3 losses, like those are
you're going to lose to
3 college football playoff teams.
Yeah, in my mind, I have 2 of those 3 making the college football playoff. But those are 3 phenomenal teams. Like I think Oregon will beat I think Michigan will beat the piss out of a lot of these teams. Like it would not surprise me if outside of those 3 games, they won every other game on their schedule by double digits. Like I truly believe.
Yeah.
Like, at Washington, like I think they run all over Washington again. Like
exactly.
I think,
and I think they're good enough to beat Oregon, considering Oregon's.
I think they could. I do think they could, and that's the thing with. At no point is Michigan ever going to be outmatched, like in terms of they're going into a game that they cannot win. They can win every single one of these games. I don't think they will, but they absolutely could.
When is that Oregon game? Is it later in the season?
Yep, November 2nd.
Yeah, so I think that's a big positive because by then it's almost like that ground and pound cold weather up north kind of thing.
Yeah. A November 2nd game in Ann Arbor, like Oregon's going to have to
that just feels to me like even if Michigan, like in my scenario, they would only have 1 loss, so I'm taking them. But even if they have like 3 losses and it's fluky, I still like Michigan in that game. It just kind of feels like that everything's kind of lining up for them to win that one.
Yep.
But Texas and Ohio State, I think, are losses. So 10-2, that could get them in. It could.
Yep. I have them going 9-3. Their Big Ten title odds are plus 600, which is still like they're still one of the top dogs. It's Ohio State, Oregon, and then Michigan are the favorites to win the Big Ten. Michigan State. Nick, I'm going to tell you this team. What do you think Michigan State's win total is?
4.5.
You nailed it. It's 4.5. That number is so low to me. That number is so low to me. Tell me who they're losing to in their first 4 games. They play Florida Atlantic, Maryland, Prairie View, and Boston College. Who are they losing to in those first 4 games?
I think Maryland could definitely beat them.
Okay.
And I don't think Boston College would, though. So
okay, so that's 3 wins. Tell me who in their last 4 games. Tell me who you think they would beat. Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers.
I think they could win one of them. They could win a lot of them, but I think I have them winning one of those. I think I have them beating Purdue, maybe.
Yeah. I think this is a schedule for Michigan State. I think there's a possibility they could win the first 4, lose 4, and then win 3 of that last 4.
I have them beating Iowa. I will say that.
Wow. Okay.
So one of Iowa's 3 losses on my end is Michigan State.
Yeah. I love Aiden Childs. I'm excited to watch him play, dude. I think he's legit.
Yeah, I think he's good. I just think that Michigan State is probably the least talented depth-wise of any school in the Big Ten from my research.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think they have the least total amount of true threat pieces. So I mean, maybe I did my math wrong and maybe I have them at 5-7. I don't know if it really matters. But yeah, it's right around that win total for me.
I have them at 7-5. I think this team, I love Jonathan Smith. I love the way he coaches football. He's very deliberate with everything that he does. I loved what he did at Oregon State. And I think he brought in enough to Michigan State, especially with Childs, that I think this team's going to be better than last year. This was a team where they fired Mel Tucker like week 2 because of the
Phone sex.
sexting allegation. That might have even been before the season started. Like this is that was a lost season before a snap was ever played. I think this year they're going to have some hope. They're going to have some life. And I think if they win that game at Maryland week 2, I truly think that they could come out with like a, hey, like we fucking belong in the Big Ten. Don't forget about us. And I have them finishing 7-5. I think it's going to be a much better year under Jonathan Smith than what they've had in the past. I think this is their first serious head coach that they've had since D'Antoni.
That's true. And so for me, it's interesting because this was probably around like February or something that I remember watching this like 30-minute long video on YouTube. And it was about Michigan State and how they are kind of just plummeting into a pit of irrelevance. And I just can't get that video out of my mind because I think that was maybe before Smith was hired, maybe, or I don't know, but that was besides the point, kind of. It was like the boosters don't care about them anymore, or like stuff where the athletic director is like not, they are not the priority at the school, the basketball team or something. It was really concerning. And so I do think things got better since I watched that, but like, it's the same year still in my head. So I just can't imagine like this huge, like, oh, all these massive concerns that everyone's talking about in East Lansing just disappeared. I think it's going to have to be like a slower burn than that. But it's hard because I watched that so long ago that I can't like really push that agenda as hard as I would like to, because I just kind of forget what was said. But that's in my head. And I think for that reason, like, I had them 4-8, 5-7.
That is fair. Keeping it moving to Minnesota. Okay. All right.
The lamest team
PJ Fleck,
in the Big Ten. Doesn't matter.
Boat, Sky Yuma, I guess.
When I'm naming, like, let's say someone was like, oh, pop quiz, name every single Power 5 school. I feel like Minnesota would be the last one I name. It just is like, never comes to my mind. I've watched in my life maybe 2 Minnesota games ever. Like, and that could even include basketball. Like, they just don't exist. And I don't care about this team either. I tried to do some research. I got really bored. I tried to go to sleep after. And I think 5-7, sure, who cares? 6-6, doesn't matter to me. What's their win total?
Yep. I have them going 4-8. Their win total is 5.5. They play 4 of their last 6 games on the road. I think this is going to be one of those seasons where they open the schedule at home against North Carolina. I think they lose that game. I think North Carolina is a better team, and then it gets downhill real quick. Like in back-to-back weeks, you have Iowa, Michigan, USC. You're not beating any of those teams. That is, that's 4 of your first 6 games. If you start out 2-4, I mean, I just don't see a world where there's enough in this Michigan or Minnesota team to turn it around. So I'm going 4-8.
Yeah, I think, and again, I one of the 2 games that I remember watching is 2019 against Penn State when Rashad Bateman was on that team, the namesake, cousin Rashad. Yeah. Love him. Now a Raven. I have his jersey. But yeah, so I remember watching that and I was like, oh, this is cool. But really, even then, people were clamoring like, oh, Minnesota could sneak their way into the playoff. Like, I'm pretty sure they ended that year with 4 or 5 losses. They're just not a team that's ever going to go like 10 win or even really be a threat for that. So could they have a win? Maybe they beat North Carolina because who knows? I think that's very possible. But then that Big Ten slate comes in and they're going to get punched around and they're not going to make a bowl.
Yep. I agree. Let's talk about a team that I actually do care about a lot. And that is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. This Nebraska team returns every single starter on the offensive lineman with the exception of their quarterback. And in order to replace their quarterback, they went out and they got the number one quarterback in his class in Dylan Raiola. I think that Dylan Raiola has a chance to make a statement in college football that you don't need to go to a Georgia or an Alabama or an Ohio State in order to be successful. You can go to a school, you can make your mark, you can do things to become a college football legend at your program. And I think he has every opportunity to do that while at Nebraska. Now, do I think it will all happen this year? No. But if you look at what Matt Rule has done everywhere that he's been,
Oh yeah,
he is a program builder through and through. That's what he does. He took over a Temple team that won one game in his first year and got them to 8 wins within 3 seasons. He took over a Baylor team that was coming off the closest thing that you could get to the death sentence in college football with the Art Briles stuff, and got them back to a Big 12 title game within 3 seasons. This is his second year at Nebraska. I think Coach Rule is in a better spot now than he's ever been at any point in his college career. He has a great quarterback. He has a top 10 defense last year that's returning most of their starters. This Nebraska team is very, very slept on. They're very, very slept on. I think they punch Colorado in the fucking mouth week 2. I think that game is going to be awesome in Memorial Stadium, night kickoff. I think it's going to be an insane college environment. I'm very excited for this Nebraska
I agree
team.
that game is going to be cinema. I don't think they're going to punch Colorado in the mouth with a freshman quarterback in his second career game. I just can't see that. Like, I think back, Trevor Lawrence was a freshman. He played against Texas A&M. Clemson was, in my opinion, that's the best college football team of all time, that 2018 Clemson team. But they beat Texas A&M by 2 points. Texas A&M ended that year bad. I just, like, in my head, that just doesn't work like that. So I actually have Colorado beating them.
Okay.
But again, like, I really do agree with everything you're saying, that I think Nebraska is going to be like a legitimately good team this year. And all media outlets we're going to see like a slow shift throughout the year where eventually it's just going to be, we're going into next year. Nebraska is no longer this, like, it's like the Detroit Lions kind of, like now we're saying, oh, the Lions are good. Like, you don't really think about them and their pit of misery that they endured for like decades. And I think after this year, Nebraska's going to have that exact same vibe about them. But I don't think they're good enough in this Big Ten that has so many teams that are ready to compete right now. I think a bowl game is a guarantee for me. I think 8 wins they tap out at 8 wins. There's no more they get more than that. And I think 7-5 is probably the most realistic.
I have them at 8-4. I think this is gonna be a really fun team, man. Like, I'm very excited.
I think it's gonna be really
Nebraska
fun.
fan.
I think they're gonna be really fun.
And I hate to be the guy that but like I want to see Nebraska fans happy. They haven't been happy in a long time. Like, I would be cool with seeing Nebraska fans take something to enjoy. They have the longest bowl drought of any team in power conference football. Longer than Vanderbilt, longer than a lot of these teams.
No, I know. It's like a true, like, it's underrated how miserable it's been for that team. It's truly like the Cleveland Browns, Detroit Lions vibe of college football. And this surely, with Matt Rule and what he's done and having a 5-star, the best quarterback in the class, and he's going to be starting, it's a recipe for success. Definitely this year, but a lot of success in the future, you would think, right?
Yeah. I do think having, like, getting your starter, your 5-star freshman, very important, significant reps in year 1 on a team that, like, isn't going to be dog shit is very important. And, like,
dude,
it's
and
a good thing.
if they show flashes and I'm sure they can get a good, decent chunk of NIL, I'm sure they already have it. If they can show flashes of excitement and Dylan Raiola, like, looks as legit as everyone says he is,
and then wide receivers want to come play for him.
I think that they can get anyone they want. They can go into next year. That's what I'm saying. They could be a top 10 team going into next season where people are like, Nebraska could win the national title. I think that is realistic. I don't know if I'm willing to be like, but we're going to see all that this year. I don't know. But next year, I really believe the script is showing that.
Yep. I am clipping that where you say that Nebraska can win the national title, and that is going in the trailer for the show because that's going to be
it's
awesome.
clickbait.
Absolutely. But I'm excited for him. Moving on to Northwestern. They're playing at their practice facility this year. I think it's going to hold
so pumped for that. I want to go to a game.
7,500 fans. I would love to go to a game at that just for the novelty of it. David Braun pulled 8-5 out of his ass last year. That was they fired Pat Fitzgerald before the season due to hazing allegations. David Braun comes in with what was a very, very not good roster.
We were seeing 0 wins, Cody.
Yeah.
That was the pre-Pat Fitzgerald firing. We were like, this team probably could go 0-12.
Yeah.
They won.
I mean, they were in the dumps and they fucking pulled themselves up. I mean, they made it to a bowl game. It's crazy.
That's culture is important. That's what it teaches you. Culture is important.
Yep. That being said, win total is 5.5. I have this team going 6-6.
So
I think they're a pretty solid team.
Why can't they do it again? I think they can.
They're solid.
I think people are counting them. Vegas is like, oh, they made a bowl. Lucky them. They're not doing it again. Why not? Sure they can. It's a lot of the same guys that done it before.
They do play a really interesting out-of-conference schedule. Miami of Ohio is one of, if not the best team in the MAC this year. I think they're going to be pretty solid. They play Duke, which who knows what we're going to get out of this Duke team this year because it's just so much roster turnover. I'm excited for
Duke. But yeah, Miami, Ohio is a good shout. They could lose that. I have them just losing 6 conference games and like one of them's to Purdue, which could so obviously not happen. And the rest are, it seems like, pretty, like, Northwestern would be the underdog against Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa, probably Washington, Maryland. So,
yeah. Yep.
6-6.
Yep, we both have them at 6-6. They're plus 20,000 to win the Big Ten. We've talked a lot about sports betting throughout this, but if you guys want the sports betting guide that we use, pull a lot of our information from, I've spent 100+ hours, honestly 200+ hours on this guide. It's over 100 pages long, but it will help you make better college football bets. That I can guarantee you because you are going to have the most information at your fingertips to make the smartest bets. That betting guide is just $20 at the link in my bio. You can find that linked below in the show. If you are watching on YouTube or if you were listening to the audio version, just go to our my social medias. You can find it there. But I truly think it is one of the best bangs for your buck in terms of it's $20. It's not a subscription. You don't have to pay to have access to it all year long. One time, $20, and you get a ton of information that you'll be able to use all season long. Now, Nick, we have to talk about the favorite to win the Big Ten. It's pretty straightforward. There is no introduction needed for the Ohio State University. Ryan Day, time to fucking nut up or shut up.
Yeah.
Time to nut up or shut up, Ryan Day, because you got everything you could have asked for this offseason.
It's the best roster I've ever seen. It's the best. It's the best roster that I've ever witnessed in my life. I was not conscious for the Miami roster of 01. Wasn't really even conscious for like 05 USC. So it really, I think this is just an absolute juggernaut of a team that will go into the Big Ten championship game 12-0. I think they beat Oregon on the road. I don't. People are saying 2 versus 3. It's going to be the biggest game of the year. I agree. And then Oregon lost to Washington twice last year, so they've lost the biggest game of the year twice. Recently, they come into the Big Ten. I just don't see them. There's a part of me that's just like, if you're from a new conference, like you have to temper expectations at least for that first year. That's normally just what you have to do. Besides maybe 2012 A&M. So I have Ohio State just kind of cruising, beating Penn State, beating Michigan, beating everyone else by like 70. Like, do you remember growing up when, you would see like Ohio State beat a team like 84-0 in like 2016?
Yep.
Like that type of shit.
Yep.
Like, I think we're going to see that again, which is
Growing
crazy.
up, brother, I was in college at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in high school. But yeah, fair. I was like 16, I think. I think
Yep.
I just got my license around then. I remember that.
Fair.
And I was
Fair.
at school and I was like, oh my God, Ohio State. Did you guys see they won 84-0? I forget who it was
Yep.
against, but I think
This
that's
Ohio State team is remarkably good. Like Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau on the front is incredible. Caleb Downs in the secondary is incredible. Like those three guys all could be first round draft picks on the defense. And
Tommy
that does
Eichenberg,
not,
middle linebacker.
huh?
Tommy
Yep,
Eichenberg
Eichenberg
and
at
John
linebacker.
Handsome and like who's the corner they have too? Who's probably the best corner in college football? Who am I thinking of?
Nah, he's not Will Johnson, but
True,
he's
but
damn good.
this guy's what's the fuck is his name though? I'm just blanking on it. But keep talking, I'll find it.
Yeah. But this Ohio State roster is loaded. It's unbelievably loaded. And then you bring in as your offensive coordinator, you get Chip Kelly. Like what an underrated hire that was. Nobody's talking about that. That's going to be insane for this Ohio State team. I have them going 11-1. I do have them losing to Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk about why when we get to my conference championship preview. But I do have them losing to Oregon. I have them going 11-1. I do think this is, if I had to pick the best, I think they're the second best team in college football. I do think Georgia is number one, but I do have them losing to Oregon. I think with just at Autzen Stadium, like it's tough. It's in the thick of like Big Ten play. They don't have any buys before or after. They don't get a cupcake game before because they have to play Iowa at home. Like I know it's not a sexy pick, but I have Oregon winning the game in the regular season. At 11-1 though, I think Ohio State cruises into the college football playoff. We'll talk about the conference championship preview, but between Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles, like I think Ryan Day has the best combined set of offensive and defensive coordinators in the country. I don't think that is
this team is
truly
so
up for debate. They're so good.
Oh, good.
So,
like,
yeah.
Like, it almost feels like if you look at these Georgia rosters, where Georgia's just been cruising, winning every game, number one in the country, it feels like for 36 of the last 38 weeks in college football. This Ohio State team, I think, if they live up to expectations, would just crush that 2022 Georgia team. Like, it's quarterback's probably their weakest roster spot.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. My biggest concern with Ohio State is 100% Will Howard.
Yeah.
It is 100% Will Howard.
He's like good. He's just not like great. But the thing is, Miami in 01 had the exact same script where their quarterback, what the hell was it? Ken Dorsey? Was that his name? But
yep.
He was like really mid, and the entire rest of the team, Willis McGahee and Clinton Portis and frickin' Greg Olson and Andre Johnson and like all these guys that were just like the greatest players at their position in the NFL for a while. On the defensive side, don't even get me started. That just feels like what this Ohio State team is. It feels like they could have like 8 guys drafted in the first round.
Yeah. Wouldn't shock me. Would not shock me.
It's just crazy. So for me, I have them 12-0 going into, and I won't say anything else I don't want to say, but obviously they make it to the Big Ten championship on my end.
Yep. So Oregon, next team alphabetically, just happens to be the next team on the list. This is a team that's returning a ton of production. Obviously, they lose Bo Nix to the NFL draft, but they bring in Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma, who I think could have a Heisman-level season. I love their offensive coordinator, Will Stein. I think he orchestrates a beautiful offense. They are returning a ton of production on the offensive line that was the least sacked offensive line in college football last year. They also add Evan Stewart to that wide receiver room. to replace Troy Franklin. That wide receiver room, in my mind, is one of, if not the best in the country.
As
They have
Johnson.
Ferguson at tight end, who's going to be outstanding for them. This offense may very well be one of the most high-powered offenses in college football this year. And then they added a ton of help to the defensive line through the transfer portal as well. I love this Oregon team. They have a tough schedule because they have to play at Michigan. They also play Ohio State. But I think this is a team that could win a lot of football games. Nick, I'll just go ahead and say it. I have the Oregon Ducks going 12-0, undefeated in the regular season.
Wow. No, okay. So this is probably where we differ the most. I have them 9-3. I have them missing the playoff. Ohio State and Michigan, 2 of their wins. I also have them losing to Wisconsin. I think that could just be sort of a fluky loss in that sense. I'm not saying that I think Wisconsin is better by any means, but and it's not that it's really just the agenda pushing of if you're going to come into Big Ten football, you're going to have some rude awakenings throughout the season. And I don't know. I think they're just getting a lot of love. And so I'm kind of like trying to like short that stock a little bit. I think Oregon is probably talent wise easily top 5, but it just doesn't work that way sometimes, you know?
Yep. I mean, there's a reason they're the number 3 team in the country right now.
Exactly. I'm not saying, 12-0 is crazy. I just think it's the fact that they're new. That's kind of it. I think these teams are going to get them.
Well, we disagree here, and I'm interested to see who your conference title ends up being. So let's move to Penn State. Death, taxes, James Franklin winning like 9 to 10 games. I mean, it happens, and that's what it is. I think this year they opened the season at West Virginia. I think we'll find out real quick if this Penn State team shows up to play. But this season they avoid having to play Michigan. So their toughest game on the schedule is Ohio State, who they get at home. This is a very favorable schedule for the Nittany Lions. Do you believe in Drew Aller and Katron Allen and Nick Singleton and this Penn State team?
I do. I absolutely do. I feel like Abdul Carter, I love, and he moved positions in the offseason. He was playing more of like a middle linebacker role, I believe, and now he's just going to be an edge rusher, and that's where he belongs. He's kind of like Micah Parsons in that sense. He wears the same number. They have Kevin Winston, who top 3 safety probably in the country. Behind Starks and Downs, like he's unbelievable. They have plenty of pieces on the defensive end to compete with some offenses that aren't as scary this year. Like I wouldn't be that scared of any offense if I'm Penn State, unless it's Oregon, I suppose, and they don't play this year. Offensively, it just comes down to Drew Aller, and he's been really disappointing. And I don't have a reason to have faith that he will just become like a really good quarterback, but I know that it's possible, right? Because he was a really highly touted recruit. And I think he's surrounded with enough talent where why not? Like, he just needs to stop. He plays so frantic. He plays like kind of like he's looking around like, oh, someone's coming at all times. Like maybe he didn't trust his line last year. I don't know. But I have Penn State 11-1, losing to Ohio State.
I have Penn State at 10-2. I think this is a damn good team.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a damn good team.
I think they're really, really good. Kind of getting slept on a little bit.
Yep. I'll agree with that. Their win total is 9.5. So we're both taking the over. I'm going to briefly talk about Purdue though. Briefly. Their win total is 4.5. They will be the underdog in 11 games this year. I could guarantee you that. They open as 37-point favorites to Indiana State. After that, they play Notre Dame and then at Oregon State to finish out their non-conference schedule. And then in their Big Ten schedule, they play Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. 3 of arguably the 4 best teams in the conference, maybe the 3 best teams in the conference. This schedule is brutal. I think it is one of the most difficult schedules in the country. And I also think that this team stinks. Outside of Yanni Karlaftis on defense, and then they have a safety that's really good that I am just blanking on his name.
Dylan Tiedemann.
Outside of those 2 players on this roster is the most unremarkable roster in all of Power 5 football. I think this team stinks.
Yeah, I do too. I have them 3-9, the bottom barrel of the Big Ten. And I have them like picking up some stupid wins too, you know, like who was Northwestern, and then like, was it, I don't know, Maryland? I don't remember, but it was like really, they're going to win their first week and then it's just going to go downhill so aggressively. But yeah, it's weird because they do have a couple guys who are like extremely draftable. So it's kind of strange. Like, why do you not transfer out? Like, I think Tiedemann was a walk-on, so maybe it's just kind of like, oh, you gave me a chance, so I'm going to stay kind of thing. Because now he's probably a top 5 safety in college football. And I don't know. It's, that's all I really have to say about Purdue. It's not going to be fun.
Yep. They are plus 30,000 to win the Big Ten, the longest odds of any team. I have them going 1-11.
Whoa.
Yep.
Fair.
Yep.
Fair.
Is what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's hit Rutgers. Their win total is 6.5. If they can get their quarterback situation figured out, I think this is actually like a pretty solid team. They were pretty good defensively last year. They play a pretty fun schedule in terms of like they play Washington, UCLA, and USC. So they get 3 of the 4 newcomers in the Big Ten. Should be a really
Virginia
interesting
Tech this year as well, which is fun.
Yep, Virginia Tech as well. So should be a interesting schedule. I think Greg Schiano is one of the most underrated coaches in college football because
I agree.
Nobody talks about him.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I have him going 8-4.
So do I.
So they're good. Like they're good.
8-4 feels like they could go 9-3. I'm not gonna lie to you. It feels like they could. Now, I remember we did our hot takes segment like a couple of weeks ago, and someone was like, Rutgers is going 10-2. They're making the playoff. And I was like, I haven't really looked into that, but off the dome, impossible. That is the hottest take of all time. I'm retracting that a little bit. It feels crazy. But looking at this schedule, I mean, let's say they are on the trajectory, like the momentum on their side, you know, you can feel there's an aura around Rutgers sports right now because on the basketball side, they have the 2 top recruits in the nation, right? So there's like a lot of these Rutgers fans and alumni and students are they're kind of buying in right now. Like, this is our year. So I think that there's a chance that maybe there's some magic behind this football team. So I'm not necessarily claiming like, oh, this is my team in the Big Ten. Like they're gonna do some crazy shit. But 8-4 is a great year. They would be ecstatic if that happened, and I believe all that.
Who would you say the 4 best teams in the Big Ten are? Like off the dome.
Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon.
Yeah, they don't play any of those teams.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I have them losing to USC, Michigan State, Washington, and Virginia Tech. You could pick out of a hat one of those games. They could win one of those games easily. 9-3 is so easily possible. Yeah. It's just we'll have to see. But I like this Rutgers.
Yep. I agree. I think it all truly. Ethan Kaliakmanis, their quarterback, transferred from Minnesota. He was very okay at Minnesota. Nothing special. If he's okay at Rutgers, I think they could win eight games. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. UCLA. This is the most unremarkable team. Like they're Eric Bieniemy is their offensive coordinator, which that's wild.
What?
Yeah. Eric Bieniemy is their offensive coordinator.
I did not know that. That's insane. I had no idea. Okay. What the
But
hell?
outside of that, like, I don't. This team. Okay, you made a hire, I guess, into Sean Foster.
I'm
Like, you have a
fascinated.
coach.
I don't know what their win total is. I don't know what you're going to say. I don't know. I'll just say this, Cody. I have them going 3-9.
I have them going 4-8.
Okay, so all right.
Yeah,
Because I kind of thought the whole episode, I was like, I might be so crazy for saying that, but
I don't think you are. And like they also have a very difficult schedule because they play at LSU in the out of conference.
yeah, I don't like this roster one bit. Do they still have
No.
that guy with the like J Michael Sturdivant? Is he still there?
That I'm not sure.
I don't know. He was
But yeah,
like the only guy that comes to mind. Yeah, because obviously Dante Moore transferred out, and a lot of people left. So
yep. Why LSU plays USC and UCLA this year?
wait, really?
Yeah,
Huh.
that's wild.
Interesting.
That's wild. Brian Kelly really must want to go out to LA at some point.
Very
I
interesting.
guess the LSU game is in Vegas. Speaking of USC,
I have USC winning that game against LSU.
USC is a very interesting team because this was a team that went 8-5 last year. They were not anything remarkable. They had a Heisman winning quarterback in Caleb Williams,
Yep.
and he didn't play his best football, to be honest, but he didn't get a lot of help either.
Nope.
And that defense sucked. That defense was one of the worst defenses in Power 5.
Terrible.
They made a hire that I absolutely love in D'Anton Lynn as their defensive coordinator from UCLA. UCLA continually had a great defense under Lynn, and I think he's going to be outstanding for USC. The question is can he change that defensive culture in a year? And I don't think the answer to that is yes. But I do think he can improve it in a year.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with USC is like, can you teach them to tackle? Can you incentivize them to see why tackling is important? Is all he has to do is just kind of like I don't even think it's like changing the culture more than it is just like, let's just implement basic strategy here, folks. And I can see that absolutely being possible. So and then on the offensive side, they moved Jonah Monheim back to center, which I think is going to help the run game a lot. Miller Moss looked great in the Louisville bowl game. He looked awesome. I think Miller Moss, I think he's probably a top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten, just because there's not that many great quarterbacks in the Big Ten, but I like him a lot. So I don't see why they can't do what they did last year. Kind of, you know what I mean? Like, why can't they just go 8-4, 8-5, that type of team? So that's what I have them doing, 8-4.
And their wide receivers, like they have Zachariah Branch, stud.
Yeah, he's
stud. They have Deuce Robinson, 6'6", 220,
end, right? Or is he
freak?
Yeah,
freak athlete, stud. Yeah. Like they have weapons. This team truly, their success is going to ride with whether or not their defense is good. I think it could be better. I have them going 9-3. I think this USC team is going to start off strong.
I don't hate that at all.
Let's go. Love that.
I think I would have them at 9-3 because I have them losing to Michigan, Penn State, Notre Dame, and then I just threw in a Minnesota loss because isn't that in Minnesota? So they have to it's just a Southern Cal team going.
Yeah, it is at Minnesota. It's coming off. It's like they play Michigan and Wisconsin, and you're like, oh yeah, and then you lose to Minnesota. It would be a weird game, but
it's just they have to go from SoCal into the harsh Minnesota climate. I don't know. Yep. I just think that could be a loss, so I threw it in there.
Yep, I don't hate that. Washington, I'm going to keep this quick. This team lost everything. Everything. They have the least returning in production in college football. They are tied with Michigan, but they have the least returning production in college football. They lost their head coach. They're moving to a new conference. They lost all of their coordinators. They lost everything. I do like the hire in Jed Fish long-term. However, this is a team that played for a national title last year. Their win total is 6.5, dude. I think this team will be terrible. And then to top that off, They play it. They're after their first 4 games at Rutgers, Michigan, at Iowa, at Indiana, USC, at Penn State, UCLA, at Oregon. That schedule's brutal. Brutal.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be horrible because I like Jed Fish. Will Rogers, I feel like they're.
Are we sure?
I think he's no Michael Penix, but like this team isn't going to be. They're not going to go from national champ to just like 5-7. I don't see that happening at all. So I have them 7-5. Like I have them playing in like the Cure Bowl or some shit where, whatever. But I like Washington games, I think are still going to be like, ooh, we have Washington versus Penn State at 7 p.m. It's not going to be like, oh, Penn State's just going to dog them. I don't care about that game. It's going to be like, oh, that's a good game. I think they're going to put together some good football. It's a tough conference.
Do you know this team's defensive coordinator by chance?
Is it some NFL guy that I would know? Is it like Jack?
Yeah. It's Steven Belichick.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Steve Belichick. Wow. It's not Bill, though.
Nope.
It's just jobless.
Nick, this is the team that we disagree the most on.
Yeah,
I know we have
some shit.
I have them 4-8.
No way, dude. Be real. No way.
4-8.
It's not going 4-8.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I don't like this team. I don't. But I'm also not a believer in Will Rogers, so it is what it is. Last team in the Big Ten, Wisconsin, the biggest conference, and we finally made it close to the end. I think Wisconsin fans would agree that 7-6 last year is kind of disappointing. Like first year was last year his first year under Luke Fickell or second year under Luke Fickell?
I believe first.
Yeah. So fairly disappointing. Like not. Yeah, you're right. It was his first year. Fairly disappointing. They play Alabama week 3. That's going to be wild. In Camp Randall Stadium.
Yeah, that should be really fun.
I think this team is going to be better. They brought in Tanner Mordecai last year. I was really high on Tanner Mordecai. That did not work out. I think injuries had, played into it a little bit. They bring in Tyler Van Dyke. Huh?
Ches Malusi got like fucking nearly amputated last year. Like there was a couple really bad injuries for Wisconsin. But yes, Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami.
Yeah, I think this team's going to be really solid. Like I can't imagine a team where Luke Fickell just comes out and like falls out flat on his face. I understand that they have a pretty difficult schedule, but I like this Wisconsin team. I think they kind of get back to, hey, let's play just good, sound football. And I think they will do that under Coach Fick.
Yeah, and so it's weird. So I have them beating Oregon and Iowa. So I think like they're not that Iowa's this juggernaut, but I think they're absolutely good enough to like compete against some of these really good teams. But that schedule is just really tough that I don't see anything better than like 7-5. Like I'm looking at USC, Rutgers, Penn State, Nebraska, and Alabama. That's tough. And then you throw in Oregon and Iowa, say they lose those games and beat 2 other teams. Like I don't see them splitting that gauntlet right there. You can even throw Northwestern in there because I think they could lose that as well. So I think 7-5 for me for Wisconsin makes sense. I don't disagree with you. I think we're just going to see such a different theme to what it means to be good in a conference like the Big Ten. And like this is it's an important thing that I think a lot of people we haven't conceptualized it yet, but it used to be like 11 wins, 10 wins, good. The rest, like, yeah, you had a good season. I think in the Big Ten, you win 7 games. It feels crazy to say, but we might be like, yeah, what a great year, like because you're now, it almost feels like you're playing an NFL schedule. It kind of does, right? It's like, and 7-5 in the NFL, that's a good team because everyone's pretty even. It didn't used to be like that. Now, in a conference like the Big Ten, it really feels like anything can happen any week. there aren't that many freebies out there. Are they playing 9 conference games now too?
Yeah, the Big Ten's always played 9.
They have? Okay. I know some team changed that recently, but not the Big Ten. But yeah, so that's just the Alabama is one of their non-conference.
Out of conference.
So they have 2 out-of-conference games that are like you could schedule freebies.
Western Michigan, South Dakota.
Yeah,
so they did.
So that's 2 wins that you've guaranteed yourself. So if Wisconsin goes 5-6 or 5-5 the rest of the way, it's not a bad season.
Nope, I would agree. I have them going 8-4. I think they're a pretty solid team. So
yeah,
I have them losing to USC, Penn State, Oregon, Alabama. So should be a good team. All right, Big Ten championship preview. But before we get into that, home field makes the best college merch in the game. I know the Big Ten has some incredible merch. Oregon has some great merch. Purdue has some sneaky good home field merch, especially their basketball stuff. IU, as a resident of the state of Indiana, I know those 2 teams both have really good merch because I see it around all the time. I was actually just at a fantasy draft last night where one of the guys was wearing some home field merch. So if you want to get truly what I think is the best merch in college sports, home field apparel, use code NICK15 for 15% off your first purchase. The link is in the description of the video or in our bios on social media. But Nick, who is your Big Ten championship matchup?
So Ohio State, Penn State. And, I kind of thought in this scenario, if Penn State's 11-1, Ohio State's 12-0 going into this game, they have both locked up a playoff spot. Obviously, you're playing for the bye. It's important. But I think there's a little bit of a difference between like the amount of times Ohio State has been in the Big Ten championship game where it's like, we have to win this game to make the playoff. 2014, they won 58-3 or whatever against Wisconsin because they needed to win to make the playoff. And then they did at the 4 seed, then they won it all. It just feels like it might feel a little bit different this year where it's like, yes, I want the bye, but I can see Penn State maybe wanting that game a little bit more, especially because they lost to Ohio State earlier in the season. And if this Penn State team is an 11-1 caliber team, like I am saying they are, then why not? Then clearly they're good enough to beat Ohio State if they're good enough to be in this game. So I have Penn State as Big Ten champs getting probably like the 2 seed in the college football.
Wow.
Maybe the 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I don't hate the take. But wow.
Yeah, no.
James Franklin finally gets the monkey off his back after Jim Harbaugh did last year.
He can do it.
Why not? Hey, fair enough. My Big Ten championship, I had the undefeated Oregon Ducks and the 11-1 Ohio State Buckeyes, with Ohio State having their only loss to Oregon. And Nick, it's hard to beat a team twice. And I do not think that Oregon will be able to do it. Ohio State has played in the Big Ten championship before. They've been to Indianapolis time and time again, and they know what it's like. And they know how important it is to win this game and to get in. And Ryan Day wants nothing more than to win a Big Ten title. And people are going to say, oh, well, Michigan wasn't in it, so it doesn't count. Doesn't matter. I think that Ohio State and Ryan Day get to the college football playoff as the 1 or the 2 seed. I have them as the 2 seed. I think they are one of the best teams in college football for a reason. I think they avenge an earlier loss to Oregon and have,
I'm just curious as who that 1 seed is, but keep going. Clearly we haven't talked about them yet, so
we haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah, no.
We've done a ACC preview, a Big 12 preview, and a Big 10 preview.
Yeah,
and I have not given my number 1 team in the country.
I think
it could be anybody. Who's to say?
Cody. I think it's going to be crazy. I think you're saving the crazy for late, but whatever.
Yeah.
Also, people forget that this is the first year or I think it's the first year that we're doing no divisions in the Big Ten.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So Ohio State has never played Michigan in the Big Ten championship because that's never been possible. So
Yeah.
if anyone ever,
But like that game was the Big Ten championship.
exactly,
Like,
but
oh, God forbid Michigan had to go play Iowa last year.
yeah, exactly. So I think no one will be able to say, well, Ohio State didn't play Michigan because the week before they did, and they beat them. So Oregon, actually, I like that. You know, if they play Oregon in the Big Ten championship, that's probably even more impressive if they win that. But yeah, no, I'm off the frickin' rails, Cody. I picked Penn State to win the Big Ten. I don't care.
I love it.
Why not, man?
Better to be crazy and right than not believe in what you say.
Yeah,
so.
well, yeah. How many people are going to be like, "Oh, Cody, you're a genius, dude. You picked Ohio State."
Wow, fucking big college football guy. This guy, he picked the favorite to win the conference.
Hours.
Wow.
Yep. But no, I welcome the chirps. If Penn State goes 5-7, DMs are open. You can say whatever you want to me. But
all right, let's get into our Big Ten draft. Before we do, if you plan on going to any games this year, I know the Big Ten has a ton of great matchups. Make sure you use promo code SmashHitSports on SeatGeek to get $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek is the best ticketing website to get all of your tickets for this year's college football games. I'm hoping to go to as many as I possibly can, and it helps to afford that when you get $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Use promo code SmashHitSports. All right, Nick, the Big Ten draft. As a reminder to the fans who have not watched the ACC or Big 12 preview, first off, go do that. Then come back to this. The Big Ten draft, we are drafting a head coach, a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a defense, stadium, tradition, and uniform. The only rule is we cannot draft the same thing, and you cannot use the same team twice. So with that being said, Nick, we're going to do, for the YouTube, we're going to do a little rock, paper, scissors here to see who gets the first pick of the draft.
Okay, ready?
On 3. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Yeah. Okay. Well, I get the first pick of the draft. For the audio version of that terrible podcasting, I went paper, Nick threw rock. He's a dumbass. I win. All right, Nick. I have to take the most obvious pick in this draft. There is no more obvious pick in this draft because I think the gap between first and second place is just astronomically far apart. And that is the uniform. I have to go with the Oregon Ducks. There are no better uniforms in college football than the Oregon Ducks. So give me them.
Yep, that is especially like in the Big Ten. That's probably the biggest difference between 1 and 2. So I think that's probably a pick. But that leaves a lot of Oregon options for me, which is pretty nice.
Yes, it does.
I'm trying to think of what I could pick that I wouldn't want you to pick. It's tough, man. The traditions, there are a lot that I really like. I think. No, I'm not going to do that. Stadium, there are 2. Defense, there are like 3. Maybe I'll just go head coach. I'll go head coach, and I'm going to go Dan Lanning, which I know uses my Oregon, but I think I like Dan Lanning the most out of all the Big Ten coaches.
I think he was my 1-1 of coaches. He would have been my first coach taken, for sure.
Yeah. So there's just so many options out there that I'm not even really that worried about what you're going to say.
Yeah, that gives me some freedom on my board, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to take a tradition next then. The Big Ten, storied conference, ton of traditions, but I'm going to take a newer one that I just find to be so much fun because there's nothing than seeing a bunch of drunk, shirtless kids jumping around at the end of the third quarter in Madison, Wisconsin. I am going to take jump around, one of the best traditions in college sports. It is so much fun. You can't beat it. So give me jump around.
Yeah, I love that. That is on my board for sure. There's that one video that from like ground view where you can just see them all, and it gives me goosebumps every time. Yeah, it's awesome. Okay. For me, It's tough. Wide receiver wise, it's very interesting. The Big Ten is not necessarily like loaded in that department this year.
I think they are, but a lot of those teams you can't like. You got to be
Well,
careful what you use,
it's like
right?
I mean, like I could go Emeka Egbuka, but I think that like people are kind of selling his stock a little bit. I think some people like maybe like a Carnell Tate Moore or something. I don't know. Doesn't matter. I still think Egbuka is really good. Can't go Oregon, obviously. Washington doesn't have anyone left. USC, I could go Zachariah Branch. But I would want to go. All right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do.
You bitch. Damn it.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's a great pick. That's a great pick. He would have been my first wide receiver off the board. I mean, that's just good value, Nick. That's just good drafting.
Thank you. But now it leaves me with a interesting situation quarterback wise. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take quarterback. Actually, no, I lied. I'm going to go running back, and I'm going to go with Nick Singleton. I think he is the best running back in this conference. Unbelievably talented. And I know he might not put up the best stats this year because he does have to split with Katron Allen, who is also a very unbelievable running back. But give me Nick Singleton. The dude is an absolute stud.
Nick Singleton is like, I'm pretty sure on EA College Football, if you play Ultimate Team, you get like free packs, and everybody just got like a free Nick Singleton, I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm. So it feels like that's a smart pick for people that didn't know him but now do, because they're going to be like, oh, I have him. I know Nick Singleton. Like, oh yeah.
Are you saying that I don't know ball? That's kind of fucked up.
No, I'm saying that you do. I'm saying that there might be people that are like, I didn't know Nick Singleton, and now I do. Depends on the listener. I don't know. Some people don't watch the Big Ten. Some people boycott the Big Ten because it's lame. We'll see. Okay, that's interesting. I'm really hating the quarterback situation for both of us, really, because you can't go Gabriel either. Nope. All right, I'm going to go stadium. I'm going to go the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic pick. It's a classic pick.
So I've so far picked an Oregon, USC, and UCLA.
Yep.
Which is just, I'm going Pac-12 draft here. But
yeah, you're just classic Big Ten program. I mean, that's just Big Ten.
Exactly.
That's so Big Ten. I love that. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go. I have not picked stadium, and I'm going to pick stadium next because I think this is a stadium that's absolutely underrated. And I'm going with Washington Stadium, Husky Stadium, out on the water where they have the sailgating and everything. The views are outstanding. I think it's one of the most underrated, like scenic views in college football. So I am going with Washington's stadium.
Yeah,
you could have gone a lot. There are a lot of great stadiums in the Big Ten. You could have gone the Shoe. You could have gone the Big House, like Kinnick Stadium, Memorial Stadium for Nebraska. There's a lot of good ones. You can't pick a wrong one, but I'm going with Washington.
I was very close to picking that. All right. Tradition. I'm going with the Iowa St. Jude's Hospital Wave.
Yeah.
I think that is probably the best tradition. As far as like I'm using like children's sickness here to get me a win in our poll, but
it's an absolute pander pick, but I love it.
Pander pick. That's But regardless, dude, it's truly so heartwarming. I love that shit so much. So had to be picked. I wanted to go Penn State whiteout, but like had to do that.
I think that leads me to believe that I know where your that I know what your defense is going to be, because you did not pick the Penn State wideout, but I can't pick Penn State's defense because I used Nick Singleton, which means I'm going to pick a defense that I'm very, very high on this year.
Oh.
And that is Nebraska's defense.
What?
I think they are very underrated. I love Nebraska's defense. And I have to save Ohio State for something else. So I'm going with Nebraska on defense.
That is a crazy pick.
They were a top 10 defense last year. Look at the numbers, dude. They're returning a ton of production.
I mean, maybe you're taking Michigan somewhere else, maybe, but
oh fuck! What am I doing? No! Oh my god, I just blew this draft. I can't. Oh my god, Nick, I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah,
No way.
I mean,
No way.
I was I thought you were gonna say like, oh, you're picking Penn State, so I'm gonna pick Michigan. I was like, no, don't. And you threw out Nebraska. I was like,
Oh my God, I've never felt more dumb.
um, yeah, like, yeah, Nebraska has a good defense, but I mean, if we're trying to win this
Oh
draft,
no, Michigan was the right pick. They have the best defense in college football this year. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pick Michigan for myself.
I'm just gonna tell the people not to listen to this and that you drafted Michigan defense first overall. And
And you just had no choice.
fuck. Oh my God, I think I just blew the whole draft.
You might have. We'll have to see.
Oh, that's
We'll have to see
unbelievable.
what the people think.
Damn.
That's what
Right.
A+ reaction though from you. I'd say
That
that's
I cannot
right
believe I just did that. That's awful. Yep, that's going in the trailer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, at quarterback, I'm going to go Miller Moss. I think he's an absolute gunslinger. I think he's incredibly underrated, and yeah, just give me Miller Moss, dog.
I'm gonna go Kyle Monangai as my running back out of Rutgers.
Okay.
I could have gone like Ronan Hemby, maybe a couple other.
Yeah, Roman Hemby was on my board.
Yeah, but I really like Kyle Monangai. I think he's quite underrated. So
Yep, I would agree. My wide receiver, I'm gonna go with a guy who I think is going to make some just absolute jaw dropping plays this season, and that is Jeremiah Smith for Ohio State. I mean, you could pick like 3 different wide receivers. You could go Smith, you could go Carnell Tate, you could go Emeka Egbuka, but I think Jeremiah Smith is going to make some plays where we just are like, how physically can a human being do that? So
yeah, I think that's very fair. He is a freak. I will go uniform. I'm going to go Maryland checkered flag uniform. There's a couple versions of that, and some of them are really ugly. But the one of them that's kind of like USA vibe themed is the one I'm going for. So if you're listening, you know what I'm talking about. If not, we'll have to see what people on Instagram think.
I know exactly the one that you're talking about, and that is a good uniform.
That
is a good pick.
Yeah, it's a really nice uniform.
People may hate on you for that pick. That is a good pick.
It depends on what they think of though, because there are some where it's like the whole checkered flag is like the whole jersey, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah, no, that's too much. That's too much. But there is a good one. That leaves me with my head coach, and I think the guy that I'm about to pick is very underrated. I think he's a really solid head coach, and I don't think he gets enough credit. Now I just realized that I also picked Wisconsin, and for jump around in that I can't pick Coach Fickell. That puts me in a fucking situation here, Nick. That puts me in a situation here because I don't know where to go. I can't pick Jed Fish because I used Washington for the stadium. Huh?
You have Michigan available still.
I do, but I'm not picking Sharon Moore. I can fucking promise you that. So I'm going to go. We're gonna take. We're gonna go with a wild card here, and I might get absolutely just flamed for this, but I'm gonna go James Franklin. I'm gonna go James Franklin because you know what? Good. No, because I picked Nick Singleton. Oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
I'm in shambles. Greg Schiano, sing me the song of the Schiano man, because I cannot pick anyone else. I got out of my draft plan. The Michigan pick screwed me, and now I'm in absolute shambles. You're easily gonna win this one again. You're gonna go back to back.
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh my god, I'm in shambles.
Who do I have? Because I left quarterback for the end because
quarterback.
I don't like this pick really, but I'm going Will Howard. Just because I kind of like don't really have another choice. I left Ohio State open the entire time. Was going to do them for a lot of things. Was like, oh shit, now I have to take him for quarterback. So, not that I think Will Howard's bad. I really do like him. It's just the idea that people understand that he's not the flashy part of that team. He's sort of like the lame part of that team, and he's my pick, so it feels weird. But yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good about my draft right now. I feel pretty darn good.
Yeah, not using Michigan at all in any spot is going to kill me. I truly feel that I'm going to get shit on. But you know what? I'm just a hater to my core, and God damn it, I hate Michigan. So
really, the defense was the only. Well, you could have done the stadium maybe as well.
yeah.
Yeah,
no, you didn't pick the big house. It's the biggest stadium. We hold the most people.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
that comment's coming for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, that being said, flame me in the comments on how I did in this draft. If you are not subscribed to the pod, please hit that subscribe button. It is the best way to support, and that button is absolutely free to press. So we will finish out with our SEC preview, and we will see you in the next one.
Adios.
Peace.